All right, so welcome. This is the third episode of the Quest for Excellence podcast. I am here today with Lyle Burks. I am super excited to have him here and to have a short talk with him. Me and Lyle are both involved in an educational program online called the Entre Institute. It's ran by a gentleman named Jeff Lerner. And just before we started this podcast, we had a brief talk, and just to kind of get some good foundation, we both understood and understand what Jeff is doing, how it's impacted us, and the kind of trajectory it's put us on in the whole entrepreneurial world. So we're definitely in the same boat, and I appreciate kind of where we came from. But I don't want to give too much of an introduction for Lyle. I'm going to let him kind of talk about himself. But Lyle, welcome, man. Appreciate you being here.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Awesome. So I want to get right into it. I just told you a minute ago, I don't know a ton about you, but I'll tell you this real quick story that you shared with the world a couple of days ago, and it's why I wanted to have you on here, at least initially, and then looking at your background and some of your history. But you shared a story online in our group a couple of days ago about you were in a store. I don't remember exactly where, but it's not important. But you were in a store, and a lady had an accident and knocked over a bunch of stuff off a shelf, and it was just a mess. And people were looking at her, and it was an awkward experience, and you could tell she was embarrassed. And like most people, no one did anything. They just kind of stood and watched her, and were a spectator in what was going on. But you decided to take action, and you recognized what was going on, and you stepped in, you helped her out, made her feel better, helped her pick the stuff up. And then through that came a manager letting her know, don't worry about it. You don't have anything to worry. We have insurance. We'll take care of everything. Don't worry. So really, to me, that was kind of, you were that first step or that catalyst for her. And it might've been real time, it happened real fast. It probably didn't even seem maybe that meaningful at the time, but having that first person that'll be there when you need them and to give you support and to be that guiding hand is super important. And it can oftentimes come from random friggin' strangers, right? Like, you didn't know this person. I'm assuming you've never seen that person before, right?
Right. So actually, I want to make sure to clarify something too. So that story was, it was just that. It was a story. It wasn't actually a personal experience. So my cousin, he shared that, and the onus really goes to him. And I just wanted to duplicate and share that too, because it really resonated with me. I do apologize for that right out of the gate, but
no, let me say full transparency. I don't care. The fact that you shared that and you resonate with that is the reason I'm even bringing it up. It wasn't to give you kind of kudos for being a good dude. It was really, if we all shared that same kind of mentality, even if somebody else did it, that doesn't matter. It doesn't take away from the power of the story. So go ahead though.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Well, I do appreciate it. My cousin, Richard Davidson, he shared it, and it's been, last few years have been kind of crazy for, me and my family, and then Richard this year as well. My cousin, his older brother, Andrew, passed away. He took his own life under unexpected circumstances. So that one really kind of just jumped out, and me and Richard have gotten really close since then. We talk a lot more, and he's just a good dude. He's someone that he's really trying to find himself after everything, and really, make his way and trying to find his way out of the web of things. So, so that story kind of spoke to me, a few months back. I talk about my life has been kind of tumultuous up to this point. I've really been pushing hard to break into an entrepreneurial type setting and get out of what I, heard and read as the rat race. I've read pretty much every Robert Kiyosaki book you can get your hands on. So been working really hard to try and get that, but just hadn't been able to get traction. I've tried multiple different avenues, MLMs. I started my own small construction business back in 2015 that just didn't work out. Got 2 failed marriages, and I still believe in there's that right thing out there, and that there's a lot of things I'm working on, but up to this point, I kind of reached a, let's say, an oh shit moment for myself, where I was dating a lady, things didn't work out, and I just kind of sat there, grabbed a beer, just had a moment. And kind of out of nowhere, a good friend of mine, Mike Brown, he reached out to me, see how I was doing, and kind of let him know a little bit what was going on. So, I told him, like, I got to make a few changes. Things are just, something's not right. I've got to figure out what's going on. So he invited me to church. Now he's been trying to get me to go to church for the last 3 years.
Gotcha.
And I finally made the decision to go ahead and go. And prior to, I wasn't really a very religious individual. I've been more focused on education, science, things. In my day job, I'm an engineer. But in every other aspect of life, I have been a voracious reader, really trying to figure out how to do this a more effective, more efficient way. So because to me, what wealth means to me is time. And time not just as, I got more time in my day, but time as in longevity. How long can I build this legacy of wealth and prosperity? Because I was talking to my now girlfriend the other day, last night actually, and kind of explaining a little more about my goals and how Entre and Jeff Lerner's system really fits into it, and what became the catalyst for propelling me to that next step. But my goal is to be able to build something so ingrained in my family that it would take 100 years to destroy.
Right.
So it's a big goal.
The idea of legacy, right? I think that's one thing I really didn't take to heart until doing this, because it's one of those kind of, you talk about a will, or when you're gone, or the impact you leave. They seem like very lofty, kind of up in the air, untangible things, but they're really not. I mean, what you're talking about, and it sounds like from what is gathered from what you told me, you've had some success. It's not like you've been derelict your whole life, and but there's been something missing, right? There's been some kind of, and I come from a background where both my parents are on their third marriages, so I get the idea of failed relationships and not being in the right mindset and all that. But it sounds like now you're kind of ready to. You can find success in life, but you're not going to find real fulfillment until you start doing something that gives you more than just an income. When you can start to have an impact, and really there's no other way to look at it. It doesn't matter if you're an owner of a company, you run a store, you're a general manager, you're a platoon leader, you run a squad, whatever. Getting the fulfillment out of what you're doing is what's most important, right? The example of people are millionaires and billionaires, or people who win the lottery, and proportionally more times than not, they're not happy. Money and success doesn't bring you happiness. So a couple of quick questions about what you said. You brought up your family, and I want to just give a little bit of back, history in your life and kind of where you came from, and then we'll figure out, how you got where you are and the kind of the path you're on. So,
sure.
Just you can describe whatever you'd like, but just where you're from, brothers and sisters. I know you have a sister. I think I saw from stalking a little bit online, but family life, where you came from, how you were raised. I know you're a military guy, so am I. We can talk about that a little bit. So give like a nice streamlined kind of autobiography on your life so far.
Absolutely. So you might be able to tell I sound a little funny. I actually grew up down south. I grew up in Arkansas. So originally my dad's family was from there. My mother's from Virginia. And so they met when he was in the Army. He was retired Army. And one way or another, we ended up growing up in Arkansas. They ended up splitting up, and I lived with my mother. I'm one of six. I'm the oldest male, the second oldest child.
Nice.
So there was a few of us running around. But, so he definitely kept things interesting in the house. But two of them grew up with my dad, four grew up with my mother. And, we really didn't have two nickels to rub together. We were pretty, to say poor is probably a bit of an understatement. I remember one time in particular, we were living in a house in the middle of winter, and we had actually moved for a short period of time. This was the second half of my junior year. We had moved to northern Missouri, and we lived in this tiny little shack, and there was a hole in the roof. Middle of winter, snow pouring in. I remember seeing a squirrel jump in and out of where that hole is right over the front.
Wow.
There was only heat in one room. We all slept on pallets, little sleeping bags in one room in this house, just trying to stay warm. I mean, that was probably one of the lowest points of my life. I remember that
And
very.
how old were you during that time?
That was my junior year,
Around
so I was 17.
June 17.
Right.
Gotcha,
Right. So that
gotcha.
was
And you were the oldest. You were the oldest boy,
right.
and there were 5 other kids. Is that right?
That's right. So yeah.
That's a lot, man. That's a lot. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good, bro. So I mean, as the oldest male, I've actually been I've been working outside of the home since I was 11 years old. My first full-time job, I was 11, working for the Gideon at my church when I was a kid. You know, he needed a farmhand, mom needed money, so I offered to help. So I, started helping him rebuild his barn, and then we moved from there after he said I did good work. When we continued to rebuild his house, and when he finished that, he hired me on as farmhand. I worked for him for 2 years. So I would get home from school, directly after school, I just changed my bus route. I'd get off at his house. And as an 11 and 12-year-old child, I was working 40 hours a week in addition to going to school, playing sports, doing all those things. And to me, that was just, that was life. My family needed help, so it is what it is. I made, $5 an hour under the table working as farmhand.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? Because I think this is a super powerful moment. I appreciate you sharing this, by the way. But during that time, I know it's hard to recall, emotional processing when you're young or, preteen, whatever. But do you remember during that time, especially like maybe when you first started, first 6 months of doing that work, did you have any kind of regret, or was it just a laser focus on, I need to help my damn family, this is what I need to do, so I'm doing it? Or was there some begrudgingly, going through it? If you could talk on that.
You bet. Yeah, during that period of time, there was nothing on my mind other than I need to help. I have a job to do, and my dad wasn't around not by his choice per se, but we didn't have a male figure in the house, so I was it. So for me,
Gotcha.
It was, all right, time to step up. I grew up watching cowboy movies and around a bunch of old farmers, so that was, in my mind, it was my duty as the man of the house to take care of business. So I did.
Let me ask you one more question about that. This is fascinating to me, and I really appreciate it. But when during that time, and even as you grew up, as you became a teen, and through when you were 17, living in that and where you were, your siblings, did they kind of share your work ethic and I need to do what I need to do for my family because of your example? Did you guys kind of all pull together, or were you the only one?
I would absolutely say, yeah. My oldest sister, Jessica, so I took the man role, and she really helped my mother around the house. She did a lot of babysitting, a lot of cooking and cleaning. I took on an additional mothering type role, so that when my mom was working, the household still ran. I remember one Thanksgiving in particular, my mom, she had got migraines all the time. So me and her, we decided we were going to make Thanksgiving dinner. It was still going to happen. So, as kids.
How'd that go? Did it come out good? Or what,
I mean,
what was the outcome?
I wouldn't be calling Chef Ramsay anytime soon. But.
Gotcha, understood. That's awesome, though. I've done a couple things like that too. When you make breakfast for the family, whatever. That's great. That feels great. So even that little thing shows a lot about your character, and even what you were doing in this time. You want to support your family, and you look at kids that are 11, 15, 17, and having that kind of commitment and work ethic is really hard to find. And really, what it sounds like is, as much as it might have been a necessity at the time, you took on that mantle as a young man and said, I need to do this. I know what's in front of me, and I don't have any other option, so I'm just going to do it. And it sounds like, again, now I want to kind of, get into a little bit closer to where you are now, but it sounds like that's carried you through your life. After high school, I don't know details. It's kind of why we're here. But, after high school, I know you were in the military. If you want to talk about a little bit after, graduation, you're, in your 20s, how kind of from where you are now to picking up where the story just kind of ended.
Sure.
What happened after that? After that shack with the squirrel running through the hole, how did life progress after that?
Yeah. So finished high school. I played football, from 4th grade all the way on, and my goal was to go play college football. So, I stand 6'4", and in high school, I was only 198 pounds at 6'4", so not exactly a force to be reckoned with. I was strong enough, I just didn't have the meat. So D2 was the only real option I had at that point, or D2 or D3, and I got scouted by Arkansas Tech, a D2 team. We looked at
Nice.
their defensive squad and everything. But Arkansas Tech is not exactly a very, very wealthy to do school. They're an agricultural school, a tech school, so they couldn't offer a full scholarship. So I was going to get a partial for academics because, just like any typical boy at that time, though I was hardworking, I was also very interested in women, and I didn't study nearly as well as I should for my SAT, ACT. So I didn't, even though I had the grades, I graduated with honors. I just didn't have what was necessary to get that full ride. So went and looked at the school and decided college it wasn't for me. So I went to join the military and ended up in the U.S. Navy. Went in enlisted as an E1, went through boot camp, came out as an E2 after taking over a leadership role in boot camp. It was called AROC. So I called cadence.
Yep.
I led the male division. We were a mixed unit, so the females, they had RPOC, she was the female lead, and AROC, I was the male lead. And, we got out there and we handled business. And then one thing I'm really proud about with my military career was that at the very beginning, I got selected by my peers as an honor recruit. So only 2% of the U.S. Navy gets that. And essentially what it is, it's like the who's who of high school and all that same concept. It's like who you think fully embodies everything that is the Navy core values, and they selected me.
Nice, man. How many people was that? Was that your whole squad? Was it your whole training environment? How many people was that?
88 people. So out of my division,
nice.
So 88 recruits out of my division. They all voted for me to be on recruit. So that was neat. I got to meet the admiral.
Oh, that's incredible. That's amazing, man. And that it's funny. I may not know a lot, but I'm a good judge of character, and I could tell that this was your quality as I just kind of was introduced to you. And I'm not surprised to hear that. And to give you a little bit of background into me, I don't want to talk about me really at all, but I'm former military as well. I'm Army National Guard. I had not exactly the same experience, but I was nominated for Soldier of the Cycle and, a squad leader and had that kind of vibe. Full transparency, I'm not a battle-hardened warrior. I've never been deployed. I had the privilege and the honor of serving and supporting with some amazing dudes who did get deployed and either put their lives at risk or lost their lives. So, military was an incredible experience. It had its ups and downs, like anything in life, right? I always feel awkward saying this when I hear it and I feel awkward, but I appreciate your service. I do.
I do appreciate yours, regardless of deployment. You still did what you had to do.
I did. I wanted to serve, and while it wasn't just for that fact, there were some selfish reasons. It was a great experience, and I appreciate our military more than probably most. So that's awesome, man. Obviously, at that point, you before you even had a chance to be deployed or have a military career, people that were around you that are used to looking at leaders, people that are in leadership roles, people with strong character, you were that dude. And that if you can't connect the dots from you at that age to you at 11, and supporting your family and kind of where that came from, it all flows, man, right? Life is like just a river, and you were brought to that point based on the kind of the structure you had and your commitment when you were young. So, all right, so military, and again, I don't know, I'm not sure if you've been deployed or if you've been on tour, I don't know. So if you could talk about that and after training and
go ahead.
Go
through boot, I end up at the best strike fighter squadron in the U.S. Navy, VFA 81 Sunliners, who said. But so deployed twice with them. First deployment was kind of a bizarre one. We were only supposed to take the ship back from Norfolk to San Diego, and then as we get down towards Florida, the earthquakes in Haiti in 2010 happened. So I got to be there to assist with that humanitarian effort, and then that kind of changed the entire environment. So we went on a Blue Ops tour and handled that situation down in South America. Then second deployment was a combat tour. We were in Operation Enduring Freedom out in the Persian Gulf. So we were supporting ground troops, doing air close air support and things of that nature. So that was second time around. And then after that tour, I was enlisted this whole time. I'm 85, went to my second command as a short tour, so non-deployed. Got there, started digging into work, and immediately began going to school at night to get my engineering degree. So I would go to school Monday through Friday from 5 to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, not Monday through Friday. Did that, and by the end of my second tour, I got my engineering degree. And we kind of flipped a coin, my wife and I at the time, and we ended up going back home, decided to leave active duty and see what civilian life was all about. So went and did that, and within a week of being back in Arkansas, I definitely realized I still had to have some sort of connection to service. I wasn't done with it yet. So
Gotcha.
that's where I entered in the reserves. So I put in my officer package, and I got picked up as an aviation maintenance officer. And I had the pleasure of serving the last 6 years as an aviation maintenance duty officer for the Naval Reserve.
Awesome. Yeah, I wasn't sure your current status. I knew you were still in. Again, just the brief stalking I was doing. So that's incredible, man. That's great.
Actually,
again, really appreciate your service.
I'm in the IRR now, so I just recently stepped down from the CELRES, so I was actively participating in the reserves. But, with life being what it is, COVID, I'm a single dad with full custody of my kids, can't exactly justify running all over the country anymore. So decided to step down from that mantle and move to the inactive reserve side and move on to the next chapter. So,
perfect segue. I wanted to jump here next. You just said you're a single dad. You have full custody of your kids. You've got 2 kids.
I do, yeah. So I've got my son, he's 10, and my daughter is 6.
Awesome. And without me doing too much digging, I'll let you kind of do the unearthing here. What led to you having full custody and, with the mom and all that? How exactly did that transpire? If you're okay with talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, that one, I was kind of glazed over that one a little bit because, at that point in time in our lives, it was just better for the kids to be with me. There were some circumstances that happened. So, we ended up going to court because after the divorce, she had custody, and a few things came to light that made it evident that it was better that the kids spend the majority of their time with me, and then she would still be visitation.
Understood.
So in 2018, I won custody, and they've been with me ever since.
Do they still see her?
Oh, yeah.
Do they have a relationship?
So I live out in Ohio, and she's in Arkansas, so we still do visitation. Like, she gets your standard holidays, and she gets 7 weeks over the summer. But, where we were in 2018 versus where we are now is completely different. We actually get along very well. The guy that she is with now, I love this dude. He is the best thing that's ever happened to her.
Nice.
So, yeah.
If we could talk about that for a second, because that's fascinating to me. And this, I'm not going to go into this at all, but I have a similar experience in my life with a sibling of mine and her kids. Much better off in a different situation than where they were originally as that, initial family unit. But, it sounds like you both have evolved from where you were, and it's not like you were some, derelict parents or that kind of thing. But you two at that point in your life, and this is going to kind of jump into what the point of this podcast is and what I want to try to help people with. You guys weren't ready at that point in your life to have a relationship together. You weren't ready to tackle that commitment, right? You weren't ready to continue as a couple committing to each other, making that initial base commitment, getting the foundation, and then going from there. But then, you might think of that as a failure. I don't see that. Look at now, everybody's happier. To hear you describe your ex's current mate like that is friggin' awesome. It shows you're not filled with ego and don't have all this bitterness, and everybody's happy, right? So I want to ask more questions about your life, but that really does strike a chord with me, because you mentioned something earlier about, you kept going regardless of what hardships you had. You always had hope, and you kept going forward. I think that's kind of the first part of the foundation we all need to have. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to have screw ups, but you got to keep that hope to keep your forward momentum, right? And because this is where I'm getting at. You might not be in a position mentally where your intention might be there, where you see yourself might be there, your goal might be concrete, right? What you want to do, but you might not be ready to do that yet. And that part is really hard to figure out and dissect, because we're all individual people, right? We're all unique. I can't give one self-help book to everybody on earth and it's going to transform their life. There might be someone out there that needs to hear specifically what you just said over this past 25 minutes to have that thing change in them. That happened to me with Jeff and the Entre Institute. I've seen self-help dudes and, online, social media, get rich this way, learn this. I've seen it all, right? But that one day, that one moment, that one point in my life clicked, and it's been months and I've stayed with it. I needed that specific thing. So I guess this is going to be strange to kind of describe or define, but from when you were 11, when you started working, through high school when things were still tough, you were the main father figure of your family. You were working your ass off. You're doing the normal stuff that kids do: go to school, deal with girls, sports, all that. But so what? I guess now, because it sounds like, well, how you just described it, you and your the mother of your children are in a completely different headspace now, and you could have a good relationship. So up till this point in your life, what do you think, and this is more of a broad statement, and then I'll dive into it a little bit, but what do you think has been the main contributor that's both kept you going and allowed you to have the incremental success over the years, from your military experience, from rocking it out as a kid to, your engineering degree and your current work? What's given you the fuel to kind of keep going?
That's interesting. There's just kind of a few things.
That's tough, man. It's so broad.
I would be remiss to try and nail it down to one, but I think mine are. My mother and I have had differences over the years and everything, and there's been ups and downs, and I suspect that's probably normal with most parental relationships. But she was always one of those people that kind of gave me that push and said, "Look, if you just put your mind to it, you can do it." So I definitely have to give her props there, because she always really she had my back. She made sure that even when times were tough, and even when she did things that I didn't approve of, she always supported me emotionally. And as men, we're not exactly very emotional creatures, so I didn't understand it at all at that time. But what really kind of kept me going after that and all those, because I think that was part of the foundation, but my personality and my heritage, who I am, I've recently learned over the last few years a lot more about my family heritage. We're Vikings, so I've got my blog, The Viking Speaks, so that's me. We're Danes, so we come from the
I'm sorry, you look like a Viking. I'm just going to put that out there. You got the vibe.
He told me about it when he was in the Army. He got to go to Danish jump school, and when he was over there, he got to meet some of our family. And it turns out, we're both 6'4", but we're the little guys. They were all like 6'8", 6'9", these giants. So just a little tangent, but I think that has a little bit of something to do with it. I've always had this nagging feeling at the back of my mind, like that I was meant to do something more. Like, this is good, but good isn't good enough. I can do better. And I knew I could do better. I always knew that, even when I was in the military, I never wanted to be someone, and pardon my French, I could never do half-ass. I don't do that. I do whole ass. I go straight in. So, I always wanted to be number one. I'm incredibly competitive, and I've always been in sports. I've done that my whole life. Now I'm working on trying to cultivate a physique so I can step on stage and compete in bodybuilding too, in the natural bodybuilding physique. I appreciate it. So that's it. It's been always in the back of my mind. Like, I know I can do better. There's something else out there. I just don't know it yet. So I need to dig. I need to find out. And I remember one day in particular, I came home from work. I was still in the Navy. It was a rough day. I was tired. My back hurt. I was pissed off because it was one of those days where it didn't matter what you did. Nothing was good enough. And I came home mad. I was frustrated, and I knew that from that moment on, I didn't want to break my back for anybody but my family, and I was going to figure out a way to do so. And so I actually said that to myself, and I sat there at the kitchen table that day. I grabbed a beer, and I grabbed my laptop, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I started figuring out. I started Googling. The first thing I Googled is some random popped into my head, said how to be a millionaire. So, I don't know. I'm a poor kid from the middle of nowhere, Arkansas. I grew up working with my hands, and that's all I knew. when I was a kid, right after high school, I worked for a bricklayer, slinging brick, and he told me, he's like, as long as you maintain your work ethic, you will never go hungry. So that stuck with me. Dylan was an awesome dude, but I started looking, and one of the first things he said was, "Hey, business." I'm like, all right, cool, sounds great. I've always kind of been interested in business. I didn't really know about it, and always kind of felt like there was this massive cloud of, I have no idea how to do that, and I want to figure out how to.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of get there, it's like, okay, if you don't understand how money works, you need to really work on your mindset first. So I started finding out all about all these books and anything that could help me. So I started grabbing books, and the first few that were presented to me were Rich Dad Poor Dad. Let's see.
Yep.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've got them behind me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give me a couple.
The Secret.
Nice.
What else?
Yep.
The Magic of Thinking Big. The Midas Touch. And
nice.
I feel like there's one that's missing, but you kind of get the gist. Those were really good mindset. Oh, Think and Grow Rich. Yep. There you go. There was a big.
I was just. What about Think and Grow Rich? It's got to be in there somewhere.
That was a good one. Those books, awesome. Those I want to say it was 5. Those 5 were the real turning point for me. And I got to go back to my mother for a moment, because that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, she bought one of the original first edition copies that came out. And in high school, I didn't know she had done this. She stuck it in a tote of my things when I moved out and I went on my way. That stayed with me. Now, this was 2012. I graduated in 06. So 6 years later, I opened this tote. I haven't opened it since then. I opened this tote after 6 years, and there's that damn book staring at me. Like, whoa, hold on, time out. I just found this book online, and it said this is one of the first books I need to read, and it's been sitting here this whole time. So you want to bet I sat down that weekend and I blew through the whole thing, and it just.
I was going to say, I bet you read that as soon as humanly possible after that point. Now I got to tell you, man, and I've had a few of these doing these so far, but you get these kind of like aha light bulb or goosebump kind of moments, and that was definitely one. You talk about planting a seed, and that was one of the first questions when you first started talking about this a minute ago. But talking about planting a seed, I don't know your mom, I have no idea, but what you just told me, she's an amazing woman. And the fact that she put that there, she knew what she was doing. She planted that seed, so when you got to that point in your life, that was going to be for you to kind of have this kind of profound shift in your thinking, right? She wasn't seeing the future, it wasn't that kind of thing, but she knew the value of that book. And it sounds, and I want to ask this too, talking about your mom, this is the first thing I thought of, and this is really important, and you got to be able to look at your past with a clear lens and not have your ego or guilt or regret involved to be able to figure out how you are, right? So your mom, and this could be a sentence or you can talk as long as you want, but how was it with her growing up with her parents? Did she have an environment where maybe not exactly like you, but where she had to do what she had to do to survive and things weren't exactly perfect? Were there some correlation between you and your mom growing up? If you could talk on that just for a second, I think it's really important, and I'll explain why you bring that up.
No, actually, she grew up in a pretty well-off family. My grandpa was 10 years Air Force, and then when he got out, he was an entrepreneur. He owned a bunch of gas stations, storage units, and a few other businesses that I'm aware of. And so he just made his own way, and she was the youngest of 4 in her family. So she really didn't have to, she never wanted for anything physically, monetarily, they were good to go. What she didn't have, there was no real emotional connection in that side of the family.
Okay. You mean between her and them? Okay, gotcha. But I guess that's funny you say that. Not funny, but my next question was, so she still had, as much as there might not have been the feeling or emotional side, she still had an example of a hardworking entrepreneurial person that kind of gave her that initial foundation. Do you agree with that?
My grandpa
did she not?
He set the tone.
Right. That's amazing, because that's, again, I'm not going to talk about myself, but I can tell you that through some dysfunction and, you know, not really accepting who you are and embracing your faults. There's some of that that's kind of interweaved throughout my family, immediate family. And it made it hard for me when I was young to even have that kind of knowledge, even be able to process this kind of thing, the hard work ethics. And it's really, to be straight with you, it's part of the reason why in my mid-20s, I'm like, all right, I'm a smart dude. I need to do something to re-pour my foundation. And at that point, it was join the military, and it worked. I knew it would, you know, the getting up early and not complaining and getting your mission done regardless, and supporting your team and your battle buddies, all that. But I knew that. But not everybody has the either wherewithal or, you know, not to be rude, but are smart enough to realize that, and they just kind of put their head down and wear their labels on their sleeve and have all their baggage and live their entire life like that. You know, you sound like through your mother, where she came from, the hardworking, you know, support yourself, not depend on other people. And then that led right into your guys' family life. I mean, you can't describe that any other way. You guys, you know, you were 11 years old working to support your family. And so, you know, that for people who don't have that, that initial foundation, and it's funny that you and your mom kind of got it in different ways. It was kind of forced on you. With your mom, it was more of kind of a natural progression of her family life. But for people who don't have that, and I would kind of put myself in one of those boats. So maybe I'm asking you selfishly, even though I'm at a good point in my life. For people who haven't made that choice yet, you know, you mentioned earlier, you've got that nagging feeling that you want to do more. And I would guess that, and I would almost say for sure, the first thing that people encounter is fear, right? Which that unravels into self-doubt and, you know, body image and all that stuff. But they're just scared, right? So anybody who's hearing this right now that might be 17 or 70, doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with where you came from. You can always make a change. And right now, as we're talking, right? And then make that commitment and go forward. What advice, and I talked about kind of you personally, how you got, for other people who don't have kind of your experience, what would you say to them to give them that hope every day, that regardless if they're, you know, it come from a horrible situation or they just don't know what the hell to do and life isn't that bad, you know, they're not sure how to embrace that feeling of doing more and having an impact. How would you tell people to do that? What would be your advice?
That one, I've got a few different areas, but I think this kind of boils back down to the infamous why. Do you know what you're doing, why you're doing it? If you have, for me, it took a lot of pain for me to understand thoroughly and completely what my why actually was. So, you know, I hope it doesn't take a lot of folks' pain. But for me, understanding that why and knowing what it was I wanted and why I was trying to do that kept me motivated. That kept me, and I shouldn't say motivated, that kept me disciplined, because motivation dissipates. You know, I heard a SEAL commander talk about this on some motivational post I watched. I got too many of them floating through. But, you know, he's right. I mean, motivation is in that spur of the moment. It's, hey, cool, feel great. Then tomorrow comes like, oh, well, that's where it comes in.
I got to mention, not to interrupt you, I apologize, but my drill sergeants in basic, and it changed my life. At the time, I'm like, you guys are dumb. I'm tired. I'm friggin' hot. It's 4 a.m. Leave me alone. But they always said, false motivation is better than no motivation, right? And to take that a step further, to get more into kind of the science of it, the idea of the willpower fallacy and the way that people perceive willpower, if you think as willpower or motivation as a source that can deplete, you're going to use that excuse and be like, well, my willpower tank is empty today. I'm good. I'm going to go eat some Doritos and hop on the couch and watch TV, whatever, right? But if you understand that it is a commitment, it isn't a fuel tank, it's a switch, right? You either have the motivation or you don't, and you might not want to do it, but because that switch is on, you keep going, right? Like that resonates big time with me. I understand what you mean. So anyway, right. So, and I think kind of what you're describing is the self-awareness, right? That the idea of the lie. You have to be honest with yourself about why you do what you do, why you've done what you've done and where you want to go. People just, like I said, wear those labels and had this armor. They put these defenses up to maintain their illusion when they would just be honest and attack what they need to attack in their life. And everybody knows what that is, right? If people quiet themselves and don't have drama, you know what you need to do. I don't care who you are. You know, maybe if you're 10 years old, that might be different. But as you grow up, you have an idea, at least an idea of what you need to do to keep going. So I love that idea of self-awareness and, motivation being a commitment and not a fuel, right? I love it. So carry on. I didn't interrupt you.
So yeah, beyond the why, I mean, there's a simple factor for me is if you look at it chronologically, I mean, you think about it from point A to point B, look, you're going to wake up today, you can wake up tomorrow, we're never guaranteed tomorrow, but let's just say you do. The time is going to pass anyway. I think I heard, it was either Brad Lee or Grant Cardone say it. Being poor is hard. Becoming rich, becoming wealthy, becoming successful is hard. So pick your hard. Just go with it. I mean, life's hard anyway.
Right.
Might as well get the most out of it.
Yeah. Here's another way to look at that, and this is mentioned by Jeff in the training. Do you want to bust your ass as hard as you ever have for the next 2 to 5 years? Or do you want to work in the regular corporate grind for the next 40 years to maybe have some kind of Social Security or, some retirement? Like, which one sounds easier? They're both going to be tough, but what would you rather do, right? Do you want to, it's so simple, right?
Go ahead, man. I love it. That's exactly where my mindset is. I've told my friends over and over again, I'm about to turn 33 next week. And I've said it to them time and again, somewhere between the age of 37 and 40, I will be retired. And to me, retirement is something totally different than what they believe. They believe retirement is, hey, I got to go and watch. I don't have to go to work anymore. I'm going to play golf and watch Jeopardy.
Yep.
Retirement means I don't rely on that job. I don't need that anymore. I have the freedom and financial wherewithal to do what I want to and need to my family. So all that's going to mean to me is I am financially free. That is retirement for me, because now I can remove myself from the have to and really dive into the want to. Because I know for me, there's so much I want to do. I've got a nonprofit I want to get operational, real estate ventures I want to do, travel. My kids are going to be in their teens by then. So I'm really looking forward to being involved in their sports and their activities. God forbid their relationships at that point. Oh, not ready to go. But those are the things
I don't think about that.
Working a 9-to-5 job or working the 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. Thank you, Kenny Chesney. You really don't have that ability. And I don't know about you, but in my experience in the civilian world, there's no such thing as a 40-hour work week. It's a nice little myth, but the reality of the matter is, if you're anyone working with your hands or out there making things, or unless you're a banker, you're probably working 50 plus hours. So I mean, what does that do? And then that doesn't even count your drive time and all those such things. I made a post the other day and it's like, what is your annual time usage? So when I broke it down, and this was actually just an exercise for me, because I really wanted to dig into, this is part of what Jeff Lerner talked about, that Awesome Life Challenge. It's really taking a step back and taking a holistic look at your life without a filter and being brutally honest with yourself and saying, look, dude, what are you doing with your time? Are you sitting on the couch making it and posting 3% of your life saying, hey, look at me, I'm good? Or are you actually out there in the grind? So when you break down that time, and there's a million studies out there that say you need 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep, whatever. If I get more than 6 hours of sleep, I'm good. So everybody's different. For me, I got to calculate that 6 hours in. Yep. And then I'm just one of those people that refuse to work on Sunday. That's my favorite. So I got to put that in too.
I'm with you.
At the end of the day, when I've got almost 3,000 hours a year remaining, I'm like, damn. When you think about it like that, there's a lot I can do with 3,000 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I think of that post you did, and I've seen that kind of thing before, but that's right, man. When you break it down like that, what are you doing with your time? And it's funny how almost all the successful people that I've encountered in the past few months or whatever, they all have a very set schedule every day. And I think you talking now, I realize that, because if you, let's say your schedule is get up at 1, eat a giant bowl of cereal, watch cartoons, go, take a shower, eat another giant bowl of cereal, watch more whatever, play video games, and go to sleep. If you were to look at that on a calendar objectively, you'd be like, dude, what am I doing? Like, this is a complete waste of my life. But when you're in it, it's hard to see that. So, and I want to mention one more thing, man. You brought this up, and it's one of the other these kind of, I'm finding there are a lot of these ideas that are just staples, these basic understandings of things that people convolute and they make complicated. No, complication is the enemy of success. But when people, you mentioned about how, when you're poor, you can't do anything right. People don't understand. This is connected to that, but if people embraced this, it would change your thinking. They'd be able to, without judging themselves, look at what they're doing. People think of ego as, I'm the best, no one is better than me, no one can understand how great I am, right? That's the typical idea we think of ego, right? You're so self-focused. What people don't realize, and if they did, I've encountered this recently, people are like, holy crap, that's an interesting way to think about this. Flip that around, okay? It is the same ego that makes you say, oh, my life is the worst, nobody will understand me, I'm in, an island by myself. But when you're in that, it's hard to realize that, right? If people understood, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Why is my life so horrible? Why do I feel like every day I can't make a change? Well, we just said, what are you doing with your time? Be objective. When you're focused on how bad things are for you, it's the same as being a self-centered, positive, egotistical person. You're not helping anybody, including yourself. So when you can remove your ego from all of this and just, like you said, look at your time. What are you doing? And make simple steps. I think people get, dismayed by, oh my God, how do I go from, like you said earlier, from, country bumpkin, don't know what the hell I'm doing, not too familiar with the internet, to becoming a digital marketer or learning these skill sets and tools that you need to kind of thrive with an online business. That same mentality, when people put their ego aside and realize everybody starts somewhere, right? I think that point alone would really help a ton of people. That, like we've been saying this, earlier too, that false motivation is better than no motivation. Absolutely. Just keep going, do the right thing. You might fail or you might have a setback, but if you take setbacks as steps back and not learn from them, you're never going to grow. So that's amazing. And look, I'm trying to stick to this. I feel like we could probably talk for a couple hours and then do another one tomorrow and do the same thing. But I feel like there's already been a ton of juicy stuff in here. I do these completely unscripted. I have, a basic idea what we're going to talk about, but not really, because we're just kind of getting to know each other. But this was awesome. I feel like people who, especially hearing about when you were a kid and coming up and the success you've had. And really, I got to tell you, aside from all that, getting to know you, talking to you here, I'd consider you a friend at this point. I respect what you've been through. It's been an honor to hear about your life, your service, and what you've done. But the next couple of minutes, I want to just give you the floor to either give some nuggets of your own wisdom, final message for the people listening in the audience, and also where can people find you if they want to connect with your business or whatever, best ways to connect to you or yeah, the floor is yours, man. Whatever you want to give.
First, I appreciate it, and I would definitely, I think we found a friendship here, brother. So I'm deeply honored you brought me on here. But there are a few things I would love to talk about. Like I said, I'm very proud of my Viking heritage and everything, so I've really started to dive into that. So that's where my my blog and my vlog. So you can check me out on YouTube at the Viking Speaks Lyle Burks. That's my YouTube channel. And I'm going to be throwing a lot of content on there here over the next few weeks and months, and hopefully, building a good following there, and really kind of giving you guys a deeper glimpse into how my mind works, what I do on a day-to-day, and how I'm working towards achieving my goals, leaving little breadcrumbs along the way to maybe hopefully make it easier for you guys. But on the other side, I've got I've got my blog. It's at thevikingspeaks.com. So I'm going to put a lot of my written word out there too, and some great detail there. Kind of just maybe some fun stuff too, just some little tidbits of what it's like to be the life of a dad nowadays in this industry. But,
yeah.
I want to make a small statement here so folks understand that, you didn't go grab the most successful people you could find um, and just throw them on here and say, hey, look, he did it, you can do it too. No, guys, I am not a millionaire yet. I want to make that last word very clear. Yet. I will be. It's just a matter of time because there is no such thing as quitting this boy. So,
I love it, man. I got to say, that's why you're here. I can recognize that. And I resonate with that 1,000%. Yet is the key word. That's why you're here, brother. Honestly, that's, and your link, I'll make sure I put it in the show notes and we'll get everything where they can find you. I'm sure anything future that you're going to be doing down the road, they can probably find through that website or your YouTube channel. No, you're right. Can you hear me now? I was just going to say, I'm sure anything else that you do in the future, they can find through that link, which I'll put in the notes below the episode here. But any future stuff you're doing, I'm sure that's probably the best place to find you, huh?
Facebook, the Viking Instagram. I've got a similarly titled "The Viking Speaks" on Instagram, and then if you want to check out my fitness side of things, that's the Viking Fit. But I'll have a lot of continuing details on there. So there's a lot more to come. I've got a book that I'm working on writing. There's just stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to get more. I'm a fan, and we're both kind of on a similar path. I'm a little bit older, but we're both in the entrepreneurial boat, getting going, and I'm excited for your future. I think you're going to do amazing, man. So thank you for your time. This has been better than I thought. Not that I thought it was going to be bad, but this has been great, and I really appreciate it, man. This has been valuable for both us. Learn a little bit about each other, and I think people will be able to take away from this and maybe start taking the steps to stop making excuses. Right? Take those steps every day. Make a plan. Stick to it. Make a commitment. You're not going to go back to it. If you make mistakes, it's all right.
It's like
keep moving forward. So,
again, thanks a lot. If you can look up, you can get up. So.
Hell yeah, my man. I'll end. We'll leave that right there. We'll leave that in the air, people to stew on, and so it's awesome. Well, maybe we'll do this again. Again, I feel like we could talk for hours. So I appreciate your time, Lyle. It's been great, and we'll talk to you soon, man.